So recently I was playing around with some high voltage stuff, and what I was trying to do was drive an asymmetric capacitor with a square wave from a function generator on my computer. Now the asymmetric capacitor that I was playing around with was this. It's a simple thing, it's a coffee can actually, so it's got aluminium foil there, tin bottom, tin top, and that was to form the large positive plate, and then I put a wire around it which forms the small negative plate. So that was the actual setup that I was using, or one side of it. So here's the setup that I'm using. All you've really got is my iPad, that's my sound source, playing into this Yamaha speaker, which is then outputting into this bog standard ignition coil. Now the ignition coil is really easy to identify. It's got a plus and a minus on it, and obviously the plus goes into the red one of the amplifier and the minus goes into the black one of the amplifier. And here's my high tension lead coming out, and there's my earth return connection. Now even though it comes through this amplifier, it actually only outputs about 1 volt or so, so it's not massive that's going into here. This is a 2000 to 1 step-up ratio, so it's around about 2000 volts that comes out. Actually, it's probably less, it's more like 1.5, 2000 volts. So it's actually, in high voltage terms, a relatively low voltage that's coming out of there. Anyway, that's that side of the setup. So now I've connected my coffee can up, you can see that the wire is going to the negative, and there's the positive on the base plate, which is connecting all the way through. Now, something really interesting happens when I turn the music on, so let me just start that playing. So it's not particularly strong, but you can hear that, and that's the asymmetric capacitor little setup there, acting as a speaker. Now that really fascinated me. So I began to wonder what else that would work with, and in particular, what kind of things you could put it on. So I got myself a bit of paper and a pencil. Now this pencil's a 9B pencil, so it's got a high graphite content. And basically what you do is just draw an asymmetric capacitor onto your bit of paper. It's quite an easy thing to do. Now, because the voltage is no more than 2000 volts, and the breakdown voltage in air is around about 1 millimetre per 1000 volts, as long as you keep this thing 2 millimetres apart, you're not really in any danger of any arcing. So I drew myself a little capacitive structure here, with a pencil on a bit of paper. And what I think is happening is that when that asymmetric capacitor is attached at high voltage, then a capacitive field is set up perpendicular to the plane of the paper, so the field is coming out that way. Now, if there's something metal over that, what that will do is induce an opposite charge, and that will attract it. And so I think you've got a retraction and a repulsion going on here, as long as the capacitive field in here, and there's a bit of metal lying on the top there. And I think anything would do that. So if you put a bit of plastic on there and a bit of aluminium foil, that would work too. Or if you've got a bit of metallized plastic. Now metallized plastic is actually quite easy to come hold of. They use it in food packaging. They use PET film, and they metallize a layer in between two layers of PET film, and that stops any oxygen going into the food, and you find them in things like crisp packets. So if you get yourself a Walker's crisp packet and slice out a square, what you'll have is a bit of metallized PET film. So if we connect up our positive and negative again, to either side of our asymmetric capacitor, and pop our film on there. Now I'm going to use a little piece of plastic over there because I'm not quite sure what's going to happen, and I really don't want to get a shock. And then I start my music again. Then again, what we get is a speaker. This one is actually much better than the coffee can. So continuing with that one stage further, what I happen to have is a bit of this. This is a bit of window film. It's bronzed as it happens, and as you can see it's relatively see-through. And same thing, just lay it on top there, start the music. And as you can see, what we've got is an even better speaker. The good thing about this is, even though there's 2000 volts going through there, I can rub my finger across that electrode, no problem at all, and not get a shock. Now as you can see, that film's see-through. So if the lower paper film was in fact printed on plastic, and we used the ITO, so that also was see-through, what you've got here are the beginnings of an invisible flat panel speaker. Now that is super cool.